Hey yo, you want to find out what happens when you go to a business trip in New Orleans and fall in love with the first person you see? Well, we gonna get into that and much more in the next Trap Recap. We gonna learn today. So the movie begins with our boy Chad, and he's talking to his old man from the business. And they're just going over all the particulars, and they see this couple pretty much break up. He's like, yo, maybe you need to swoop in. It looks like you got your cape on, but I'm out. And the next thing you know, the Italian guy's giving her a hard time, speaking to her in a language she don't understand, and he pull up like, yo, is we good here? And she's like, no, my date just left with all the money. He's like, yo, let me take care of it. It's team. He's like, yo, so you want to get a ride back to your house? And then you can pay me back. And she's like, okay, let's do it. So they leave the restaurant and head back to her place. She actually ends up getting the guap and paying them back. She's like, here you go. And he's like, bet, well, I'm about to break out. Back to business. And she's like, yo, you sure you don't want to smash? And he's like, smash, okay. So then he ends up following her back to the room, getting her naked and putting it on her, you know what I mean? Giving her the business. And he ends up pretty much falling in love. In the morning, he pops out and he says he gotta go. And while he's gone, Trixie's ex, who left her at the restaurant, comes back. He's like, yo, I love you. I still want to marry you. She's like, yo, I found some better Wayne. And so it ain't no thing to leave you on the hang. He drops the flowers and he gets the hell out of there. And that night, she got Chad back over at her spot. And he's like, yo, Trixie, I'm really feeling you. Like, yo, that's that good, that wet. Matter of fact, I think I'm in love. And she's like, you know what? Well, you promise? He's like, yo, I promise I'll never die. We gonna multiply. And then, they get at it again. But really, he wakes up in the morning and like, he can't even believe what he did. He goes, looks in his Ridge wallet, and he sees his family, so he just leaves her a fucked up note. I ain't even gonna tell you what it says, but it was ratchet. He ain't even put his shirt back on. He just bounces. She finds the note, and it pretty much tears her up from the inside out. You know what I mean? She can't even believe. Guess what? DJ Khaled, you played yourself. So Chad goes back home, runs into, he actually married and got a new little baby. He's like, yo, the business went like business does. And she's, trying to get a hold of him, but he ain't answering his phone. And then she comes into her ex's room, and he done killed himself, Smokey the Bear and all that, ended his own. And back at the house, Chad's wife is trying to get him in the mood and show him how much she appreciates him and them having a baby. And it gets a little spicy, but then they get interrupted by a phone call. And it's Trixie. She's like, yo, you fucked up. You think you about to leave me hanging? Nah, I'm about to ruin your life. And he's like, hold on, please. He's like, yo, it's the plumber. I need to go do plumber stuff. Yeah, that's what it is. And she's like, yo, how you gonna leave me like that? You said you loved me, we was gonna have a life. He's like, yo, never call back here again. Lose the number. And then he slams down the phone, goes back to bed, and realizes he done fucked up. So he at work doing his work stuff. His homeboy's like, yo, man, you need to just ghost her. Change the number and unlist it. He's like, that's smart. I might even do that. Yeah, right on, bro. So he goes back to the house, and his wife's like, yo, man, we need to talk. Like, I love being here with the baby, but I'm about to go back to work, and I'm gonna get us a nanny. And he's like, what? Fucking crazy? This is like the 80s and shit. So it's like, we don't do that yet. And after work, he comes back home, and his brother-in-law, who's still a kid, is there, and he's just chilling. And then Chad gotta go ahead and take off for work. And guess who shows up for the nanny job? It's Trixie. And the wife's brother lets her in. And they introduce each other, and they start the interview. And she's like, yo, I'm just feeling you. I don't know what it is about your energy. And she's like, here, take the baby and see if the baby responds. And the baby goes right to sleep. Like, easy peasy, you know what I mean? And she's like, yo, I can't even believe this. You're hired. You're going to be the nanny and whole wait staff. So now while he's out of town, he's talking with the homie from the job. Trixie sits down with Dollface, and they're like, yo, man, I feel like you about to be my best friend. And she's like, yeah, we gonna do all that. Yo, I'm about to actually go to bed. So she takes off the bed, and while she's undressing, she got a little peeping Tom. It's Dollface's brother. And Chad rides back at home, and he doing his thing. And he comes in, and he just sees how immaculate it is. He's so happy. He's like, yo, baby, what you been up to? She's like, yo, I got the new maid and the nanny. It's going down. You gonna love her. And dun-dun-dun-dun, it's Trixie with his baby. That's the moment he knew he fucked up. And she's like, yeah, nigga. So that night, he sneaks out of bed, and he's like, yo, he needs to figure something out. So he slides down, gets dressed, and runs in on Trixie, puts his hand over her mouth like, don't say shit, bitch. Yo, you gonna have to leave. She's like, yo, make love to me, daddy. She's like, hell no. And he's, oh yeah, I run the shit now. So you better balls up and motherfucker drop them drawers. Get naked. Bucket naked. He's like, okay, but I'm doing it just this once. She's like, no, I run the show now. You gonna do it whenever I want. Pop the top, little boy. So he's like, oh shit. And then he handles business, and then he goes to work to handle more business, and he's just stressing out, even though it should be easy. So she show up that night, wake him up, and she's like, come on. He's like, all right, get out of here. Shh, don't say nothing. And he's like, yo, we gonna do this, but you gonna have to change them drawers, because you've been wearing that same fit. And then actually the brother ends up seeing too much. And so that next morning, there's all kinds of tension between everybody, even though nobody really knows exactly what went down. But bro looked like he ready to handle it. Trixie comes into the bro's room. She's like, yo, he's like, what the fuck you doing in here? He's like, yo, so I think you might have seen too much and got the wrong impression. But be real, you really upset because, hold on, let me close this door. You really upset because you don't want nobody else touching me. So I guess I'm gonna have to show you what a woman's work is. And he's like, oh wow, I've always dreamed of this. This is so much better than my virtual reality games. And so they start making out, and they get it done. The next day, she's actually, she poisoning, she doing the old Cardi B to the family and stuff. Only to the wife, actually. She got the boys under her thumb, and she happy as hell. She's getting the best of all the worlds. So that night, Junior boy shows up, and he's like, yo, I'm ready for dessert. In the morning, he's like, yo, I'm gonna take off. Y'all need to chill. Get this motherfucking house clean. He's like, yo, you an asshole. We should just have a family, me, you, and the baby. And she's like, yeah, that's weird. So then the wife ends up in the hospital, and she's like, yo, it's the big meeting with the big investors. She's like, I can't even do it. I feel like I'm dying, COVID and all that. And she's like, can you just step in for me? So she's like, yeah. And she lets Chad know, like, hey, I don't know where your wife is, but we can make this shit happen. So the Japanese investors show up, and they're like, konnichiwa, bitches. And he's just like letting them know how they can do good work. And everybody is just really amazed by Trish. She's like, yo, thank you. I do what I can. I step in when I can. She takes a call and finds out that, the wife is okay. And after everybody leaves, she's like, yo, your wife's in the hospital. He's like, yo, what the fuck, bitch? It's like, yeah, well, maybe you should just go pick her up instead of tripping. He's like, I can't even believe you, man. I'm out. So he goes off to the hospital, and he wakes up his wife, and she's like, yo, I was just a little sick, baby. Did everything go good? And he's like, yeah, it did. He's like, well, that's all that matters, baby. Listen, he's like, yo, let's break out of here. So they end up leaving, and then Trixie goes back to the office with, Chaz's homeboy, and he's like, yo, man, that was that good, man. You got that young. And she's like, yo, but how did you end up meeting my man? She's like, yo, we met in New Orleans, and we fell in love. And then he left. And she's like, hold up, you the crazy bitch? And she's like, yo, don't be calling me crazy. Shut the fuck up. So in the morning, he's like, yo, I gotta tell you, man, I smashed your maid. Is that the chick from New Orleans? He's like, yeah, it is, man. I didn't tell you, but yeah. He's like, yo, she is nuts, dude. You better watch yourself. So he rushes home. He's like, yo, splash, I gotta get back. She's like, what up, daddy? You good? She's like, yo, where's this crazy chick? She's like, yo, you gotta get the hell out of here. I don't care what you tell my wife, but you gotta go now. And he's like, all right. He's like, yeah, my homeboy Mark told me what's up. So then Dollface is like, oh yeah, she ain't going nowhere. And then that night, you know, Mark's working late, the homeboy, and she pulls out the revolver and she's like, guess what? Now this is your last day. And for some reason, the hospital calls Chad, like his homeboy's his, you know, emergency contact. And he's like, yo, I gotta go to the hospital and see what's up. I think he's dead. And then his brakes is not giving out, so he ends up out of the Continental. And that motherfucker goes like Dukes of Hazzard style. That shit like straight up Fast and Furious. Like, bah, boom, vroom. And like, there must have been all kinds of gasoline in there. And they're like, yo, we worried he ain't back. And he's like, you bitch, you try to kill me. And she's like, daddy, what's wrong? It's like, this bitch, she pulled the brakes and she tried to kill me. He's like, yo, I was the one that pulled your brakes. Yo, cause you the worst. And we could all be happy if you weren't here. And I'm a big boy. And then he starts choking the shit out of motherfucking Trixie. And then homeboy tried to roll over. He's like, yo, I'm about to marry her. And since this is an affluent neighborhood in the 80s, the cops show up in like 60 seconds without being called. And they're like, yo, get up off her. And then instead of just taking her, you know, chance, she ended up grabbing a gun, pointing at the police. Then she ends up shooting Chad. She's like, yo, look what you made me do. And they end up letting her, you know, shoot dude before they shot him. And they're like, yo, we're gonna get in trouble because they ain't black. And then you know, the wife comes over and says what's up real quick, but then she leaves to go find the baby. And she's like, yo, where the fuck is the baby at? Like, how did we lose track of the baby? Where's the baby? And then guess what? That's the whole motherfucking movie. Submachine Uzi.